Welcome everyone. My name is Maureen McInerney. I'm the Director of Development for Women's Public Leadership Network. We're a national 501c3 nonprofit that is focused on training women to seek public office at all levels across the US. So this Mother's Day, we wanted to highlight some moms on the trail that are serving in office or campaigning currently that are doing it while they are serving their families as the heads of household. So joining me today is Senator Jessica Bell from North Dakota. Jessica is a state senator from North Dakota's 33rd district. She's a fifth generation North Dakotan, born and raised on a cattle ranch just north of Dodge in the district that she currently represents, supported by her husband, Michael, and two teenage daughters, Ella and Eva. Jessica's career in the mining industry focused on land management and environmental stewardship helped her develop a deep understanding of the need for good government. She served the North Dakota state as a state senator for District 33 since 2012, representing an area including Mercer, Morton, Oliver, and now part of McLean County. She's currently the chairman of Finance and Taxation Committee and a senior member and previous chairman of Energy and National Resources Committee. And that is just a small taste of what she does as a public servant. So Jessica, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is just a wonderful organization, and it's really nice to have the opportunity to get to share what we've got going on here in North Dakota.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about your decision to run. What motivated you, and what did you hope to accomplish by serving in public office?
So the first time I decided to run for office 10 years ago, it looked a lot different than it did this time around. That first time, I had to be encouraged, of course, as most women do, by multiple people to put my hat in the ring. And it was an appointment process. And so I thought, well, everyone thinks that I should do this. I was 28, a mom of a 2- and 3-year-old at the time, and had a full-time job. We were a citizen legislature here in North Dakota. So it's all just like the +1 kind of situation. And I thought, well, we'll see. There were 6 or 7 other men interested in the position. It was an appointment, and I ended up getting the job, and 5 days later we had organizational sessions. So my first round and run at public office was very different than the typical experience. I found myself at home immediately once I got there, after I made myself go through the doors, because that was probably the hardest thing, was making myself walk through the chamber doors. But fast forward now 10 years. So I finished a 2-year term. I've run for 2 4-year terms after that. And I always had kind of looked at 10 years being when I should really sit and evaluate what it is that I wanted to do as I move forward. And I felt that coming 3 years ago. So we've been thinking about this next term for a really long time, and really like challenging ourselves as a family to try and come up with the positives and the negatives. And so this is just a very timely conversation for me, because we really have taken the time, and we have prayed, and we have talked and talked and talked and talked. They're all a little sick of it. So I think the thing that sent me over the edge to run for this next term, we've got a change happening in our North Dakota legislature. We've got a change in leadership. I'm in a position now where I chair the tax committee, have influence on the energy committee, but also on appropriations. And so as I looked at the dynamics of people returning to the legislature, we've got 47 senators in our district, or in our state, excuse me. And I would be, if I'm successful, I would be the only returning senator who's a mother of school-age children. And to have only one senior member of the legislature that is a mother of school-age children that are in the public school system, one doesn't seem like enough, and 0 is certainly not enough. And so I think when I hit that realization, it really helped push me over the edge. We have so much work to do here, and we have significant savings accounts and investments that are being made in our state, and mothers have to be at the table where those decisions are being made. There's just no question in my mind. So between that and the challenges that we're facing here in coal country in North Dakota right now, and all of the work that we've done to build up to this point, we've got policy changes that need to be made too. And so it was kind of the combination of those two things that just kind of tipped the scales for me.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I'm glad you said that. We always say at WPLN, we want a diversity of backgrounds and experiences at the table. And it just is baffling to think that a mother of school-age children would not be at the table. So very much appreciate the representation that you're bringing. So you said, this is an ongoing conversation with your family, you're praying together, you're considering the decision. What are some of the factors that you think about as a family? What's some of the feedback you're getting from your kids, from your spouse about your decision one way or the other?
Well, I have teenagers, as you mentioned. Those 2 and 3-year-olds turned into 12 and 13-year-olds very, very quickly. I swear all I have done is blink in the last 10 years. And for them, they're like, so how does this affect me exactly, Mom? As all of us do in that self-reflection of things that are impacting our lives. And so they were funny because I asked them both separately, so they weren't influencing one another as we were really like coming down to the wire here. Like, what do you guys think Mom should do? And one of them, well, so you'd be gone just the same amount that you have been gone. And I was like, yep. And how do you like that? Is that working for you? And they were like, yeah, it seems like just the right amount. So it's fine. You're still going to be able to come to my stuff. Yes, I'm still going to be able to come to your stuff. So for them, it was just, they crave their mom. They crave that interaction. And so they wanted to make sure that I would be there like I've always been there for them. And once we had that settled, they were good. They were actually encouraging as I'm facing the first primary challenger that I've ever had. And so my youngest is Spitfire. And so she was like, Mom, you have to do this. So she's really excited. They both really are. So it's been fun to talk to them about this. And my husband has been involved in politics his entire adult life. And he has been encouraging, but the approach that he took is really one of my favorites because he wouldn't tell me what he thought I should do until after I had made my decision. Mm-hmm. And so he just really helped me walk through it and was so supportive through the whole 3-year process that we have been analyzing this. So he's just always right there. And it's wonderful.
That's great. And what a great example. And the fact that, you have 2 daughters specifically that are seeing their mom do this at kind of a critical time that they're learning about sort of the process and their own place in it. So I'm curious, are they participating in any aspects of your campaign? Have they participated or engaged at all with your work as an actual representative?
Well, we're definitely corralling the 6th and 7th grade votes here in our city. They participate in the fun stuff. So they have the luxury of being behind the scenes to see all of the not so fun stuff that somebody in public office deals with. And that goes, it's across the spectrum, whether it's professionally or personally. Politics is a really weird sport. And so they get all the icky parts of the job. And so when it's campaign time, they get the luxury of picking and choosing whatever it is that they want to participate in that they think would be fun. So they love the parades, and they love to throw the candy, and they love to make people smile. And they really just love to be out getting to know people in our communities, because they can then see that connection that if we understand the people who live in our communities, we can understand our communities, we can understand the broader population and figure out a way that we can help. And so I think that's the fun part of the campaign for all of us, is just hanging out with the people who live here, so that we can figure out how we can help in a better way. So
that's great. I'm curious if have there been any difficult aspects or moments that were particularly challenging about balancing both? I think one thing you touched on was that your kids, want you at certain things in their life. And as a mom, I'm sure you want to be at as much, if not everything that you can be at. But are there those challenges, anything that you can think of over the last 10 years that come to mind, that you want to share with somebody that might be going through this now for the first time?
Yeah, I think when it comes to being there, like you mentioned, and I had mentioned before, it becomes a choice. Not all the time. There are just, if we're on the floor, there are things I have to be at, and that is that. But I've gotten a lot better through my years of public service of knowing exactly how and when to prioritize what things. And as long as we're explaining that to the girls, they are just so understanding and wonderful. So we choose them every time that we can. And when we can't, we explain why. And girls like to be told why. I mean, that's just, we're like 2-year-olds. Why? I'm that way in the legislature too. So, but I think one of the biggest challenges, we've got really small communities. My district is relatively small. And so the people that have strong opinions are my friends on social media and on Facebook. And my kids can see some of that sometimes if they're on my devices, if they pop something open. And it just so happened one day, one of my kids popped a post open, and it was during a really divisive time during COVID. And they saw one of our community members talk not super great about their mom. And it was during a time when I wasn't home. We were having a special session. And so I drive back and forth a lot. I live an hour away from the Capitol, and so it's easy for me to go back and forth. But it was really upsetting. And so I think those things are difficult, knowing like they know this person, and so they could really connect what I do in my political life with a person at home. And it wasn't just these big bad people. It was, somebody who lives down the street. And so I think that was a really important lesson for all of us. I mean, it happens to me all the time, but to watch it happen to one of the kids was really difficult. But we talked through it, and we actually have talked through it with that constituent as well. And they're supportive of the campaign. And I mean, we're all singing Kumbaya kind of thing. And so I think that those things that are definitely hard in the moment are opportunities for us to try and learn how we can just be better community members. So you can contrast those kind of experiences, though, too, with other experiences. Like I got to take them to the Oval Office to meet the president and advocate for federal tax reform back in 2017. And so there are not so fun things that we get lessons from, and then there are some really cool things that we get to do, and that they get to do that because they've made sacrifices too. So
yeah. Well, I hope that anybody watching, this is a nice reminder that there are human beings on the other side of social media, especially our elected leaders and their families, and that, it's something we're all working towards, is to be just more respectful and come to the table and have these longer conversations. Sounds like, ended up happening in the end from this experience. Is there any piece of advice or wisdom that you wish you'd known before getting in, for anybody that's not yet in the process, or maybe is halfway through? I mean, you've worked your way up in leadership, which is great to see. And not every woman either stays in office long enough or has those opportunities to be in leadership. So any piece of advice about your experience that you'd pass on to the next woman?
Well, I think I needed that reminder just now that I know that it takes a lot to be able to get to that point where you can be at the table and make decisions. So thank you for the reminder. It's encouraging. I think, first piece of advice, always encourage other women to run for office. And I know that is a foundation a foundational piece of what you all do, but it is so important. So if you have friends, do that, and run. I mean, run, do it. That's my number one piece of advice. If you're not unsure, give it a try. But the best piece of advice that I got when I ran for office was to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable, which scared the living daylights out of me when I started, because I apparently was living a life of comfort before. We like seek those challenges out now. I look for different things that make me uncomfortable, so I get nervous, and it's such an important piece of growth, and it's also a really important thing to accept when you're living such a public life, that you are going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. We're all uncomfortable sometimes. So that's the best piece of advice I got before I started. It has stuck with me, and it's something that I continue to chase. But I've been contemplating this a lot lately, and I think the piece of advice that I wish I could have given myself when I started, I got like fake it until you make it kind of thing. Like I mentioned before, I was appointed, and 5 days later I was being sworn in and expected to just understand how everything worked. And so I definitely fake it till you make it was my mantra. But I think that I felt like I was faking it before I realized that I actually wasn't faking it anymore. So all of a sudden, and sooner than you realize, you aren't faking it anymore. You actually know what you're doing, and you're not aware of it when it happens. And so I think as you're getting out of your comfort zone and trying something new, and you feel like you have no idea what you're doing, just take a breath, because you do know what you're doing, and you are leading, and people are listening. And just having that level of confidence and knowing that you got this is really important. I'm a big Superman poser, so that's my other piece of advice. Like one of my sister's friends texted, she's got a job interview on Thursday this weekend. So she was asking for some pieces of advice, and I gave her my whole list, and then I said, and then show up 10 minutes early, check in, and go to the bathroom and stand in the bathroom stall for 5 minutes in the Superman pose. Just do it. Like, you're going to feel so silly, but there's science behind it. I mean, it lowers your cortisol levels, it increases your testosterone, and it makes you more confident. Science. I love science. I'm a science geek. So that's my other piece of advice too. If you have a big thing, go to the bathroom stall and just do it. It helps.
That's such a great piece of advice. I'm definitely going to try that myself next time I need some extra confidence. And I think you touched on so many things that we hear from women across the country and across every stage of their journey. Women want to know everything before they get in. They want to feel qualified. They're more often motivated by actual issues that they want to affect and things they want to advocate for. And it does take some amount of pushing one another out of the nest for us to make real change and progress in terms of getting these women in office. So thank you for leading by example, again, for everything that you're doing and representing by just serving your communities. So my last question is just on how are you and your family celebrating Mother's Day this year?
So of course we're in the middle of a campaign, and so I am a scheduler, and I feel like I'm getting things done if I have tasks and I have a plan. And so I'm tasking and planning the other day, looking at the calendar, and I see we have this Sunday that like says holiday. I'm like, what is this? And so I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Mother's Day. It's wide open. And I was so excited because I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I saw the day was open. So we in North Dakota, the weather is not always conducive to being outside, but for 3 months in the summertime, it is. And that comes up here starting in June. And my favorite thing that I ended up doing while I've been in office, I think it's been about 5 years or so, is we have a boat, and we have to get the boat ready. And so we have to wax it. It's like a whole day thing. And typically we just dread it because it's a lot of work, but it's always worth it. But it's a day where you have to be committed and you have to want to do it. And it takes an effort by all of us. And so I looked and I was like, yes, we're going to wax the boat. So Mother's Day, we are going to wax the boat. It is my respite. When our legislative sessions are every other year, that we didn't have one this year, but they run from January until the end of April. And then May comes and we get to put the boat in the water. And so it's time to put the boat in the water. And this mama is so happy because we have a small confined space that the family all has to be in. And I'm ready to get the summer started in that way. So we're doing one of my favorite things on Mother's Day.
That's so great. It sounds like that represents so much for you too. beyond just getting it ready. It's like, all right, you're going to kick off the warm weather, the good times, some family bonding. So well, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait for folks in our network to see this, to get to know you and to learn from your experience. And I'm just so grateful that you took some time to share with us. And I just want to wish you, on behalf of WPLN, a very happy Mother's Day.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful.